So, good afternoon, everyone. It's a true honor to be here today among such distinguished representatives of the aerospace and defense industry. A big thank you to GIFAS for hosting us at the Paris Air Lab today. So big thank to our host, Corinne Ligné and Baptiste Wilquin. We'd like you to applaud the GIFAS for hosting us. So thanks a lot. I won't be long. Today, I would like to introduce you to the International Aerospace Environmental Group, or IAG. As some of you may know, the IAG is a non-profit organization which has been incorporated in the USA. Formed in 2011 by just 11 visionary members, the IAG initially focused on shared challenges like REACH compliance. They recognized that some issues were too complex for any single company to tackle alone. Since then, the IAG scope has expanded dramatically. What began with specific regulation now covers the entire spectrum of sustainability, including climate change mitigation and environmental management across the product life cycle. We've grown from 11 founding companies to nearly 80 companies today, representing a truly global effort in aerospace and defense. It's incredible how far we've come. In an era where industrial stewardship is critical, the IAG guides us, our industry, toward a more sustainable future. We are a global voluntary organization of leading companies. We are talking about major players, fierce competitors who unite to collaborate on environmental and ESG challenges that are too vast for any single entity to solve. Think about our complex supply chain and global operations. Without a unified approach, efforts will be fragmented. This is where the IAG shines, driving harmonization and best practices across industry. One key to our success is our robust and legally secure governance model. We bring competitors together to work with remarkable trust, backed by a framework that ensures confidentiality and compliance with all regulation from antitrust to GDPR. Our structures include a board of directors and an executive committee with active participation from principal member companies. This commitment extends to our 11 dedicated technical working groups, which focus on specific environmental challenges. These groups hold 2 face-to-face meetings annually to foster deeper discussions. All the remaining activities are performed remotely. Crucially, I think this is the point that should be outlined today. The IAG is not only a forum for discussion. Our primary focus is producing useful deliverables and robust reference documents that directly benefit the entire aerospace industry. We develop tools, guidelines, and best practices that streamline environmental management, reduce compliance burdens, and accelerate the voluntary adoption of sustainable solutions across the global supply chain. It's this commitment to tangible outputs that makes our collaboration so impactful. Let me give you a glimpse into our impactful work. We got 11, as I said, working groups, one on chemical stewardship and material compliance. We harmonize chemical management and develop common declarable list of substances. Life cycle assessment and circular economy, we promote methodology for assessing environmental impacts and advanced circular economy principle. And I know that in a few minutes, Phil Godfrey will go deeper into this in a few minutes. Climate change mitigation, we drive efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but undoubtedly we support sustainable aviation fuels and standardized carbon footprint methodologies. Common supplier sustainability assessment. Through the EcoVadis partnership, I recognize EcoVadis CEO and the team being here today. We enable a single standardized sustainability evaluation, cutting redundant efforts. Regulatory watch, there is the working group 9 on regulatory watch. We maintain a unified industry watch on global environmental regulations to facilitate compliance. In essence, the IEG is a testament to the power of collaboration. Even in a highly competitive landscape, working together on shared environmental challenges benefits everyone. Individual companies, the industry as a whole, and most importantly, of course, the planet. Our work is about innovation stewardship and building a more resilient and responsible aerospace and defense industry for generations to come. As Hélène Keller said, alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much. This perfectly encapsulates the spirit of the IEG. Finally, a huge thank you to our distinguished panelists, all chief sustainability officers leading our industry forward. I will recognize Phil Godfrey for Collins Aerospace, Nathalie Stubler from Safran, Brian Moran for Boeing, and of course Julie Ketcher for Airbus. And we all look forward to your insights. Before you leave, do not forget to scan the QR code that will be displayed at the end of the presentation for a more comprehensive overview of the IG activities, and visit the IG website, www.ig.com, to learn more about our activities. I thank you very much for being here this afternoon, and I let Phil on stage. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Can you all hear me okay? My name is Phil Godfrey. I am the Chief Sustainability Officer of Collins Aerospace, and I'm also a very enthusiastic member of IAEG. Let me tell you a little bit more about why. First of all, I'm delighted to share with you today another milestone of IAEG, which is the first ever framework for LCA, life cycle assessment, in an aerospace context. So in order for you to be able to share my excitement, I guess I need to answer two questions. What is life cycle assessment, and why should we be excited? So very simply, life cycle assessment is, well, it's many things, but I think of it as a tool it's a design tool. But let me give you a very simple example. If your task is to design a drinking vessel, perhaps you have design A and design B. Design A is a metal, an aluminium can, and design B is a glass bottle. So in order to do a life cycle assessment, in order to understand the implications of your design choice for the whole life of that design, right from where are the materials coming from, how am I going to make it, how is it going to be used, how is it eventually going to be recycled or otherwise disposed of at the end of its life. In order to do that, you could use a life cycle assessment that's going to help you make an informed decision what is the right design for that particular application. So that's great. So can we use that in aerospace? Yes, we can. We know that it's widely used in automotive, and we know that lots of aerospace companies are beginning to see the value of life cycle assessments and how they can increase resiliency and sustainability in their choices. But there's an opportunity for IAG to add some value here, because if I have a LCA design tool and you have an LCA design tool, are they calibrated? Are they going to give you the same answer when I ask which is better, the aluminium can or the glass bottle? Because if they're not calibrated and we're working on the same aircraft, then we're not working efficiently. And we know that aerospace companies want to work efficiently together. So here is an opportunity for IAG, and I'm delighted to say that they've taken that opportunity. If we can have the first slide. This is our LCA on a page slide that Workgroup 12, one of the new work groups for IAG has been focusing on for the last year. So a lot of collaboration over the course of 12 months has delivered this first output, and I will tell you in a little while how you can access that output, that first ever LCA framework. You can see our motivations. We are looking to inform design choices. We've got a mind to regulation. We know that regulation on this issue is evolving. And we want to build stakeholder confidence by being increasingly consistent in the way that we use this tool together along the aerospace supply chain. You can see the approach we've taken in the middle, and 12 months after beginning this effort, we have delivered our first ever LCA framework. And our key success measure now is with you. Aerospace companies that are interested in designing for aerospace, making long-term decisions, we invite you to have a look at this framework and give us your feedback. If we could have the next slide, which talks a little bit about the aerospace supply chain. We're trying to do two things. We're trying to improve the standard fit and the consistency of the use of LCAs. So by fit, I just mean simple things like which impacts are you measuring? Are they the same as your suppliers and your customers, so that the information can flow, if you choose, along the supply chain through the LCA? And then consistency refers to some of the assumptions that we make when we set up an LCA. Where is particularly the secondary data coming from? What are the boundaries we're drawing around the use of the tool? If we can do that consistently, it's a better tool. So Workgroup 12 has looked at common questions that aerospace companies discover, ask themselves as they begin to use this very useful tool. And we've come up with baseline answers. It's entirely down to the companies involved whether they take those answers, but what we talk about doing in Workgroup 12 is trying to remove the sort of accidental or the unwanted variation. If it's a conscious choice to do it your way, that is fine. But we think that this framework is going to be helpful in raising the bar quickly, and we invite you to take a look at it. The next slide, please. So here's the front cover. There are another good 50 pages behind that. I won't be reading them all to you today. But as I say, it starts with some fairly fundamental questions about how we collaborate along the supply chain, including which impacts are we going to measure, which environmental impacts are we going to assess throughout the whole life of aerospace products. So here's an example. We take your chosen impact category, maybe it's CO2 equivalent of your product throughout its life cycle. And as a baseline, it would be great to express that in a mass form. So maybe you make paint, and we want to know what is the CO2 equivalent per kilogram. That is a useful baseline measure. But you may then be motivated to add to that some more information about your particular functional unit that is useful to you as a paint manufacturer, like coverage. And if you add that, that increases the sophistication of the tool, and you can see that it adds information to the people along the supply chain. Time is limited now, so the next slide, I invite you to get your phones out, and you should be able to link straight from that QR code to the first ever aerospace framework for LCA. So if you want to know more, please discover it via that QR code. And at this point, I've told you enough about LCA as a specific example of what IAG can offer the aerospace community, and I would like to progress to the panel discussion. So I'm going to invite our distinguished CSO panelists to the stage. We have from Airbus, Julie Kitcher. Hi, Julie. Welcome. Julie is not only a Chief Sustainability Officer, but has an enormous CV with great experience. And I particularly wanted to point out the different CSOs we have with us today each have excellent contact with various different aerospace stakeholders. And I know you, Julie, have particular experience with our investor community. So welcome to the panel. Maybe. I tell you what.
Better? Yeah, now it's okay.
Ah.
So, thank you, Phil. Hello, everybody. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And next, I think we have Nathalie Stubler. Nathalie, Chief Sustainability Officer for Safran. And again, a tremendous CV with lots of rich experience. And I particularly noticed that you have good contacts with your rich experience of our airline customers. You have run an airline.
Yes, so more of my career was in an airlines, Air France-KLM Group, but I'm really delighted to be part of the industry, to have moved on this side of the aviation.
Excellent. Very delighted to have you with us today, Nathalie. And Brian Moran, Chief Sustainability Officer from Boeing. Again, Brian, you have great experience, but I particularly noticed that you have a lot of work both sides of the Atlantic with policymakers, and I think that's a really important stakeholder at this complicated time to bring that to the panel.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks for having us.
Right. So we've talked a little bit about IAG and the value of collaboration, how we can drive collaboration together. I guess the first question for the panelists is, what are your thoughts on the fundamental value of collaborating? Why should we collaborate? Because we don't always collaborate in aerospace. Some of the time we're fiercely competing. So why are we collaborating in this super compliant forum?
It's the only way we're going to get there, honestly. It's wonderful to be at an air show where we compete fiercely, but that's why it's even better to be at a panel like this where we get to talk about IAG, and it would just probably the absolute best example how our industry comes together to collaborate on really difficult issues. And the ultimate why behind it is, and I like to say, 80% of the world has never set foot on an airplane. They deserve to, and it's our collective job to make sure they do that safely and sustainably. So if that's not a motivation, I don't know what would be.
That's a very good point, and wishing to be very balanced, I'd like to put the same question to Julie.
Thank you, Phil. I think, yeah, I mean, IAEG, I like to think now it may even need to become IAESG, because there are so many sustainability topics that we need to tackle as an industry. And to be able to do that, we need unprecedented collaboration and coordination, and actually probably even further beyond the traditional ecosystem as we knew it 5 years ago. It's extending substantially. And I think it's forums like IAEG that really make the difference, because it starts with transparency. You talked, Phil, about the life cycle analysis, and when you think about from design through to manufacturing and operations of our aircraft, it starts actually now. The conversation around sustainability begins with the customer at an RFP, who now wants to know what proportion of the aircraft is made from recycled materials. What substances do you use in your manufacturing processes, and what chemicals exist? Where do you source your minerals, your materials from? And what proportion of your aircraft at the end of the life cycle are going to be recycled? So actually, the conversation is much larger today than it's ever been before about these sustainability topics. And it's really our responsibility to ensure that we're very conscious and aware of the impact that our products have on the environment and on society at large. Given that they bring so much value, we need to defend that value by being transparent about what we do, how we do it, and how we're going to improve that going forward.
Thank you very much. So we've heard a little bit about the value of collaboration across aerospace, but maybe I could ask Natalie, okay, so I want to collaborate. Why in particular should I be interested in IAG?
It's a very important place because we are all over the world. You see Boeing, Airbus next to me. You have all the engine manufacturer on board. So I think it's key, the place where we can really collaborate and work together on this difficult topic. And as Brian and Julie were mentioning, you cannot do it alone. None of our companies can do it alone by itself. So we really need that cross functions, cross ideas everywhere. So IAG is a very large place, with big, as Bruno was mentioning, with big companies of aerospace and defense. It's a safe place also to collaborate. And the working group are really focused on what is important, what matters the external stakeholders. Bruno mentioned it, but I would like to give a bit more detail of why AAG and why this example are so crucial. We are talking about the entire supply chain. Julie mentioned all sustainability topics, not only environment, but also social, human rights. And IAG had a great idea to design an RFP to choose what could be the provider, one unique provider, to do the ESG assessment of the supplier. And we did it, and EcoVadis won this RFP. So we have chosen this company. We are 13 companies of IAG in this initiative, and it's more than 50% of the spend base of the entire big figures you mentioned before. And for the supplier, it's a good choice, because instead of answering a charter from Airbus or a questionnaire from Boeing or another assessment from Safran, it's the same assessment. So it does it once, and it values for all the participants to this initiative. So it's a real great deliverable, very useful for our entire industry. So that is key, the working spirit and conditions and the deliverables we want to have in IAG.
So recycling starts with sustainability assessments, and
Yes.
it saves money.
Exactly, saves money and time spent around these topics.
Saves money and we can improve faster. Great. That's really nice to have a very specific example there of how IAG has added value to aerospace companies. Maybe I can invite Brian to add some Boeing perspectives.
Yeah, I mean, look, you saw the long list of working groups, which evolved over time, but the one that I remember the best, and really the origin of IAG, was around chemical compliance and chemical assessments of your supply chain. Here in Europe, you have REACH, which bans certain chemical of high concern that you then have to design out or get an authorization for continued use. And it makes absolutely no sense for us as individual companies to do that individually. And so what's beautiful about IAG was we created an antitrust safe environment, so under legal protection, where we can openly share data and impact assessments that are non-competitive, and then compare notes. Okay, are you impacted? Are we impacted? What are we going to do about it? Are we collectively going to ask for authorization because it impacts the entire supply chain? Or is this a Boeing issue that we need to go solve for ourselves, or an Airbus issue for that matter? And so that's one example that I found was really gave birth to IAG. The second one, and my final quick example, is several years ago, it's sustainable aviation fuels, it's all over. We talk a lot about it. Boeing made a commitment that by 2030, all of our airplanes should be capable of flying on 100% SAF. Airbus also made that commitment. So very quickly we said, well, we have a place where we can compare notes legally to think about, okay, how do we do this research together so we don't waste resources and hopefully come to the same outcome? And if we don't, then okay, there are places where we can deal with that. But so, Boeing right now is leading, and with Airbus co-chairing the working group. And as you saw on the list earlier, there are many of these working groups that are GE is chairing, and Pratt is part of it, or Rolls-Royce. And frankly, it's probably the coolest example I know where the ecosystem comes together like that.
That's great. So you mentioned one of the very early working groups and one of the very recent ones. Julie, would you like to share an Airbus perspective on how IAG has made a contribution?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, I can echo all of the comments that have already been made and maybe add the decarbonisation journey. So obviously, when it comes to CO2 emissions and energy consumption, we're very much working as a combined group to have a standard definition. Our scope 1, scope 2, that's our own operations, and so we all understand how we need to assess our own operations. But the big elephant in the room for our industry is scope 3. And so at Airbus, we initiated our own scope 3 assessment back in 2021. Which has now been approved by SBTi with the clear methodology, and it's been a really useful reference, exchange, brainstorm, and to really set a standard as well in this group as to how you need to think about scope 3 for the industry. And that's a big number. You know, last year it was 475 million tons of CO2, our scope 3. And I'm pretty sure that Boeing Scope 3 is an equivalent, which makes it a really big number for an industry that we need to tackle collectively with the levers that we're all agreed on in terms of, you know, technology, air traffic management, sustainable aviation fuel, and market-based measures as well. So when you look at that as an industry, it's pretty powerful to have, at the same time, a common objective and an agreement on what the levers are that need to be worked on to be able to meet an ultimate net zero objective. So it's a forum such as IAG where we can really make a collective difference to drive that net zero home.
Thank you very much. So we've made reference to a number of different regulations, and I guess it's worth saying that they're very often quite high-level regulations, and it takes quite a lot of work to turn that high-level regulation into a plan that can be implemented. So I wondered, Natalie, if you'd like to comment on, you know, what is the secret to collaborating well in a place like IAG? Obviously, lots of success stories here, but what do you think is the secret to success?
I think the people involved in the working group, they loved working together. They loved exchanging their experience. Also the fact that their expertise also on these topics. They are very passionate, and also it's part of the success. It's also the fun part to work together. I think all the participants like the face-to-face session. I think the last one was very lively around the SAF group, for example. I see one of the experts from Safran also participating in it. Also circular economy. So I think people are very much involved. They are engaged, and they really love working together and collaborate on these topics because they feel it's important, as Julie was mentioning. Everybody is looking at us. What are you doing to improve the sustainability of the aerospace? And they feel that, and they love working together and really provide results. I think it's a great spirit of the working group in IAG. This is what I feel.
Aerospace people are passionate people, and they like working together. Thank you very much, Natalie. I wondered, we've talked about a few of the recent, relatively recent work groups, 12, 13, and 14, so that's LCA and SAF and circularity. What might come next? And any thoughts on that? Maybe Julie, any thoughts on where IAG could add some more value?
Well, I think there are a number of emerging topics, and I'm not sure we've got to the end of the topics that we're currently working on either. So I think first and foremost, let's keep going on what we've launched. It's absolutely key. And, you know, Natalie mentioned circularity. When you think about business continuity, when you think about the sourcing of raw materials, if you can create, for example, a revert loop and recycle those materials into aerospace-grade materials afterwards, then you're building a sovereign supply of raw material for our industry. So it's really important that we keep going. We keep going on CO2 as well, because we're not there yet. We're really not there yet. And you know, we've heard a lot about the SAF journey over the last days, and we'll continue to hear a lot about it because there's a lot to do. But then when we think about new topics, I think non-CO2 is a big topic and one of growing focus, given that my personal view is that we can only be credible on CO2 if we think about climate change impacts as a whole. So that's the CO2 with the non-CO2 or contrails, if you like. And I have to say, I'm a big advocate. So first we look at our own sector, but then carbon removals will be absolutely essential for this sector, because we know even with a blue sky scenario, there will be residual emissions by 2050. It's well recognized. So we need to be able to establish a carbon market system that includes carbon removals as a recognized way for our sector, which we know is a hard-to-abate sector, to be able to really meet those net zero targets in a clear and credible way.
Thank you very much. So some interesting ideas there. I just wanted to throw that one open. Does anybody want to add anything to that list?
You know, I'm of two minds on this one. You sense the enthusiasm for IAG. I love this place, and it's exactly the right form to do what Julie just outlined. And I also had a boss who beat into me that doing everything is doing nothing. And so the thing around prioritization is on our mind, because we're all resource constrained. And so picking the next one is going to be incredibly hard. We're also going to have to renumber things, by the way, because the 14 groups don't add to 11. But the one that sticks out for us right now is to do with supply chain traceability, and EcoVadis is a great partner in this. Things like human rights, conflict minerals, things that we need in Europe in particular, and soon in the rest of the world for reporting purposes, CSR&D, et cetera. It would be pretty good to have sort of, again, using EcoVadis as a common platform so we don't duplicate our work.
Yeah.
Natalie, did you want to add?
Yes, as all mentioned, the list of topics is very impressive, and we want to progress in all these lists, for sure. The 100% SAF commitments we have taken to say, yeah, the next generation will be this one, of aircraft, of engines. But I would say, for me, most importantly, it's maybe in each of these topics to have real, concrete deliverables, as we mentioned for the ESG assessment. Could be also a very good one also in the SAF, 100% SAF. And circular economy, it's new. You mentioned it, Julie, it's a bit nascent for us. I felt it super interesting when we were last time all together in Montreal. The session was opened by the General Secretary of ICAO, and he said to us, I would like your outcome on this topic, circular economy, to bring to ICAO. So I found it very interesting, not only the topics, but what we can really deliver at the end. If we have concrete material, you mentioned LCA, that will be, I think, the target we should have in all this working group, and to make sure that we deliver progress too.
So keep making sure that it's defined and valuable to aerospace companies. Good advice. And now I'd like to just invite each of you to give one or two sentences where you share your wishes for the future of IAG and for collaboration within aerospace. Julie, did you want to go first?
Yeah, with pleasure. I would say, first and foremost, we need to keep going. A huge amount of momentum has been built, and a huge amount of progress has been made. We need to make sure that despite the opposing forces throughout the world, that we stay focused and we continue to deliver on what we need to deliver for our industry, which is full of incredible people that make incredible products and services that bring a huge amount of value to society as a whole. That's worth fighting for, and I truly believe that we've got an awful lot to bring to the table, so we've got to keep going.
Thank you, Julie. Brian, did you want to add to that?
You know, I was really struck by the really positive comments around the culture within IAG. And I want to give tribute to Bruno because he lives that culture every day. He wears an Airbus badge, but inside of this grouping, you'd never know. And Dave Graeber on the Boeing side, exactly the same. And I think if we could bottle that working together spirit that Bruno embodies and infuse that into our respective companies, I think we'd be well off.
Thank you very much. Wise words. And Natalie, perhaps you'd like the...
Yes, we need to keep going. We need to keep the same spirit, if I can also use your words together. Same spirit within IAG, and we make progress. I'm pretty sure that the spirit within this group of people will lead to progress for all the aerospace industry.
Fantastic. I'd like to thank our distinguished panel for a really interesting and thorough discussion. I think we really explored the value of driving collaboration in aerospace, and I'd like to invite you to stay around. Maybe you have some questions, and I believe there is talk of cocktails available. So thank you very much indeed, everybody.
Hold on, Phil.
Yeah, Phil, we need to say something. You mentioned Bruno. I think we need to say something to Bruno, because
We do.
somewhere, we don't know when exactly, but yeah, during the course of the year, we understand that Bruno should, I will say the word, retire.
Take a well-earned rest.
Yes, thank you. Better said. So, yeah, we should say big applause to Bruno to have made this job.
So just a few words. I think I'm sure that with the spirit we left, the IG will be on the good track, and I could rely, I'm sure, on all the successful and the spirit we had created together throughout the company to ensure that the work will continue. So I'm quite confident on that. And as I said, I would like to thank you, all the panelists, once more, the GIFAS for having hosted us today on this Paris Air Lab. And for any kind of questions for the folks who may have some, I invite you to take part of the small cocktail that will be served. And I hope we will organize the next sessions in 2 years in the Paris Air Show. So many thanks for being here, and thank you.